Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, What Can Law Practice Management Software Do for You? Presented by Jared Correa. My name is Stephanie Phelan. I'm a marketing manager at MyCase, and I'll be your host today. But first, I'd like to give you a few tips about participating on GoToWebinar. The webinar control panel is on the right-hand side of your screen. This is where you can control audio, chat with me, and submit questions. Please use the questions pane to submit your questions throughout the webinar. I'll be collecting those questions and saving them to ask Jared at the end of his presentation, but please don't wait until the very end to shoot those over to me. Also note that these slides and recording will be available by end of day tomorrow on the MyCase blog, and it will also be emailed to all registrants. When you close your webinar today, a 5-question survey will pop up. All you have to do is answer those 5 questions, and you'll be entered to win a $100 Apple gift card. The survey will only take about 30 seconds for you to complete. If you'd like to join the conversation on Twitter, the hashtag to use is #MyCaseWebinar. This webinar has been approved by the Wyoming State Bar and the Florida Bar for 1 hour of general CLE credit, including 1 hour of technology CLE credit. If you are a Florida Bar member, note course number 2515R to self-report your CLE. Please note we do not provide certificates for this webinar. Today's webinar is hosted by MyCase, so before we jump into things, I'd like to give you a quick overview. MyCase is a web-based law practice management software that takes care of your daily practice requirements for calendaring, contact management, document management and templates, time and billing, client communication, custom workflows, and much more in one solution at an affordable price. MyCase is priced for solo and small firms at just $39 a month per attorney. We also offer MyCase websites for our customers. The one-time fee to set up and build your custom website is $9.95. Then there is a $50 per month fee to maintain and update your website. Our websites team makes some beautiful websites, and they can build one for your law firm too. We use a modern professional design built for your firm. The websites contain social media and blog integration, and best of all, a client portal which is completely integrated with your MyCase software. So now you and your customers can log into MyCase directly from your own website. And next up is payments. Are you accepting payments from clients yet? You really should be, and it's easier than ever. MyCase now has built-in credit card payments feature for our payment service. MyCase customers can accept online payments from clients using both credit cards and checking accounts, also known as e-check or ACH payments, seamlessly through their MyCase account, no third-party integration required. Last but not least, we enjoy hosting educational events for professionals in the legal industry, and that's why we're all here today. So let me tell you about our presenter. Jared Correa is the founder and CEO of Red Cave Law Firm Consulting, which offers subscription-based consulting and technology services for solo and small law firms. A former practicing attorney, Jared has been advising lawyers and law firms for over a decade. He's a regular presenter at local and national events, including ABA Tech Show. He regularly contributes to legal publications, including his column Managing for Attorney at Work and his Law Practice Confidential Advice column for Lawyerist. Jared grew up in a Boston suburb where he lived with his family, a goat named William, a peacock, and a slew of exotic animals. Jared didn't need an alarm clock growing up because William the goat would bleat outside their window at 6 a.m. to wake the whole family. Jared has since adapted to life with alarm clocks and is living in Boston. Thank you so much for being here today, Jared. I'm going to let you take it over from here.
Thanks, Stephanie. And that's all true, by the way. None of that is made up. Thanks to MyCase for having me out to do this presentation today. I appreciate it. And thanks to Stephanie, who's had to put up a lot in dealing with me and getting this presentation to move forward, but she did it. I feel like I am a goat in Stephanie's backyard, but here we go. Let's start with a poll before I get into talking about what law practice management software can do. More of what it can do, by the way, because you learned a little bit about what MyCase does at this point. So here's poll number 1. How many clients do you have? And here are your response choices. I don't know, 8. I keep a list on an Excel spreadsheet. Hold on. I'll count them and come back. More than 1,000? I truly have no idea.
Great, thanks for reading those, Jared. So if everyone can please go ahead and cast your vote. I'll be closing the poll in just a few seconds, and we'll learn our results right away. And, okay, looks like the majority has voted, so I'll be closing the polls. Here we go. Okay, and results are in. So how many clients do you have? 17% said, I don't know, 8. The majority, so 52%, said, I keep a list on an Excel spreadsheet. Hold on, I'll count them. 7% have more than 1,000 clients, and 25% truly have no idea.
So a significant portion of you have 8 clients. That's an interesting number to pick out of the hat. So I kind of did this on purpose. And one of the things I do when I go into law firms to consult with them is I will always say, how many clients do you have? And that should be a pretty straightforward for a question for an attorney to ask. And I might rephrase the question and say, how many active clients do you have? Because it's not necessarily fair to ask about archive clients. These results bear out what I see in practice, is that probably more than 50% of attorneys are using an Excel spreadsheet to manage clients. Now, the problem with that is that there's not a ton of functionality in an Excel spreadsheet. So one of the things that a software product like a law practice management system would do for you is allow you to link certain information to clients. So the advantage of keeping a client list in a law practice management software versus keeping a client list on an Excel spreadsheet is primarily that you deposit that information then into a relationship database. So A, you can look quickly and see exactly how many clients you have, and B, you can attach things to those clients. You can relate information to those clients. At a very basic level, you've got contact information. So what can you do with that? Well, you can send out mailings, you can send out emails, you can send out voicemails, you can send out emails, and you can also do things like relating items to those client contacts names. So you can archive emails, you can save documents, you can save tasks, you can delegate tasks, you can add meetings, you can add events, you can add time and billing information, you can link that to invoices. And once you have that contact information in there, by the way, at the beginning, you can also do a conflict of interest check. That's far more powerful than anything you'll see in an Excel spreadsheet. And that's the real advantage of case management software. If you think of it as a holistic database for all of your basic primary law firm information, what you're able to do is access that information on a chronological basis with the click of a button. So if you're a lawyer and you open up the John Doe file, you can see everything that happened in chronological order from the time you signed on that client to anything that happened that day. That is extremely powerful. That's going to be better than an Excel spreadsheet. That's going to be better than a document folder on your computer because that doesn't contain emails. That's going to be better than your email system and using subfolders in your emails because documents aren't attached. And the beautiful part of this is that it's one dashboard that you can share with people who work with you, who collaborate with you, clients of yours. So let's delve into a little bit of these advantages with respect to consolidation of features. And you can see that's where I'm going here. Instead of using potentially 4 or 5 different software programs, a law practice management system would allow you to use one program to access all of those features you access across several different products before. And there's a lot of hassles when you're accessing different software. Different sign-ins, different features. How many licenses do you need to buy for those various softwares? Is it going to be cheaper to consolidate and buy one license? The answer is probably yes. So bringing in these multiple processes into one database is extremely effective. And that is really the major basic advantage of moving from an Excel spreadsheet or an email management system where you're jury-rigging your own case management via your email system to a case management software that functions as a relationship database. And I see this in the chat, but what I'll also say is if folks are on Twitter, use the hashtag MyCaseWebinar to post about this. And if you have any questions, you can tweet at me as well. My name is on Twitter is @Jared Correia, @JaredCorreia. And if we don't get to one of your questions during the webinar, tonight when I get home, I'll answer your questions on Twitter. The other thing that's valuable about practice management systems is that there are integrations available. And the two very basic examples are email and calendar, and also accounting software. So if you like QuickBooks, or more to the point at many law firms, if your accountant likes QuickBooks, you can link QuickBooks to your practice management software. So you're capturing time and billing electronically, you're relating that to the client, you're pushing that data out to invoices, and then all that time and billing data, all that invoice data can be integrated with QuickBooks by linking your QuickBooks account to your law practice management system software. QuickBooks is the most obvious example, of course, but there are other accounting products out there as well. Taking another obvious example, you could link your case management system to your email, and that will allow you to do a number of different things. So instead of saving those subfolders where you're managing all your client information and trying to jury-rig that through your email, you can now archive your emails at your case management system. You can delete those emails from your inbox. You can save space, you can save time, you can dump everything into the one database where all of your law firm data is that you can log into and view at any one time. That's very powerful as well. Most attorneys are using email plus calendar on the same product, so we're talking about Outlook for many attorneys, and you can link your calendar as well. So you create tasks in your case management system, and you can push those tasks out to your email calendar. You can push those tasks out to the mobile application whereby you access your email calendar. So part of the advantage here that we'll talk a little bit about later on is you also get to a point, if you're using cloud-based software, where you're device agnostic. And what I mean by that is you can be on your tablet, you can be on your smartphone, you can be on your laptop, you can be on your desktop. 5 years from now, you can be using the chip that the government has embedded in your head, and you can access your case management software from there as well. Cloud-based, device agnostic, mobile access, it means that you can practice where you want to practice and how you want to practice, so long as you have a secure internet connection. Let me tell you, that is a beautiful thing. The other thing that a law practice management software can consolidate is access to the law firm data. This is a problem in a lot of law firms, is access control. You see a lot of folks in law firms, in small firms, and in solo offices as well, using multiple access points to get to their data. You've got more passwords. You've got more information potentially exposed in various different accounts. Pushing all your law firm data, including documents, including email, to one account will mean that you have a more secure law firm. You'll be able to have one sign-in, for the most part, for all your law firm data, which is really helpful. So that reduces the likelihood that one of your 8 passwords will be hacked versus one of your 1 passwords. And you'll also have access control in terms of users. Instead of just giving folks in your office access to 8 different accounts, you can have them all access the case management system, and then you could manage their access within that system using the features of the product. So some people are screened from certain cases. Some people are screened from certain reports. Some people are screened from financial reports. Some people have administrator rights, some people don't. Managing partners can get into places that associates cannot. Associates can get into places that staff cannot. You now have one login. You now have one place to manage the access. It's also advantageous. It's going to save you time. It's going to make sure that your law firm is less exposed from a data loss perspective. The other thing is and the last thing I'll talk about in this section is a law practice management system can create a redundancy for you. So it serves as a data archive or a repository. If you were using, say, Microsoft Outlook 365, And I know there are attorneys out there who use G Suite or Gmail. I just use Microsoft Outlook because that's the most obvious example, because that's what most attorneys use. Say you attach yourself to Microsoft Outlook and you want to keep your emails in Outlook 365 because the storage is so cheap, there's not really a reason to delete those emails. Well, that's fine. Now you have those emails also archived in MyCase. Those emails are attached to specific clients. And so you have two places where you can find that data. One's down, you go to the other. Now you have a data backup, a data redundancy, where you have two places to access information. Totally up to you if you want to do that, but that option exists as well. So just by way of the 6 things I talked about here, see that there are a lot of available and useful features with respect to case management that improves on email management, which a lot of attorneys work on, and that also improves on management by files like Excel spreadsheets or Word documents. Far less hassle when you're talking about a case management system. And the price now is better than the price 10 years ago. Before cloud-based systems, you could only really access premise-based systems for law firms, and it cost a fortune to get in. A monthly subscription rate is a much cheaper, much better way to go. I'm still shocked by the relatively low percentage of law firms that are using law practice management tools. I'm still staggered by that. There's a lot of room for attorneys to improve in practice management, and the best way to do that, unequivocally, is to use a case management system. Let's talk a little bit more about calendar management, and I've addressed some of this already. One of the big advantages of working with a law practice management system is that you can sync your calendars. And if you look at, I don't know if anybody looks at these contracts, but when you sign up for malpractice insurance as a lawyer, one of the standard questions on those applications is, do you maintain a dual calendar system? You may write that you do in terms of malpractice insurance, but that is actually a terrible idea. The more calendars proliferate in your law firm, the more likely you are to experience errors. The traditional law firm, and I say traditional even though a number of the law firms I consult with now still use this process, you've got a big blotter calendar that everybody makes updates to. Well, what if a page rips off? What if somebody spills their coffee on it? What if somebody doesn't add a notation? What if somebody overwrites a notation that's actually accurate? The more calendars you have, the easier it is to make mistakes, the easier it is to commit malpractice. And the easiest way to do a single calendar approach as a law firm is to use a case management software's calendar as a major calendar for the law firm or the primary calendar for the law firm, and then sync it with everything else. That's why the sync, the two-way sync, is so important. Because you can make updates to your email calendar that then get pushed to the practice management calendar. You can make updates to the practice management calendar that then gets pushed to your email calendar. You're accessing the exact same information, the exact same calendar, where you need to get to it. So it's a single calendar accessed across different programs. That is far more valuable than using multiple calendars and inviting errors. And even if we're not talking about paper calendars, if you're using an online calendar, let's say, using Microsoft Outlook, and maybe you have a traditional premise-based version of Outlook, it can be difficult to share those calendars. It's far easier to do that with a law practice management system. You can also add tasks to the calendar within a law practice management system that then will devolve down to those other calendars. And the advantage, as I said before, is that this is a relational database. So once you're adding these items, once you're adding this information, it is attached to the client file. So you open the client file, you have a chronological history of everything that's gone on, including tasks, including events, including outstanding tasks that you can follow up on. And that's a great malpractice avoidance technique. The other beautiful part of this is that it's far easier to delegate and to monitor assignments when you're using a system like this. Everybody has access that's appropriate. Everybody can share data in an effective way. Tasks can be assigned. Tasks can be updated quickly. Tasks can be monitored to see how the progress is coming. When I was working in a law firm, it kind of sucked, frankly. I was an associate when I started out, and several of the attorneys I worked with would get together every Saturday morning and we would have a meeting where we'd go through every single case we had that was active every weekend to see what the status update is. Using a practice management system, those tasks are updated in real time, automatically, and you can spend your Saturdays doing, well, I don't know what you do on Saturdays, but do that instead. The other piece of this is that if you delegate effectively within your law practice, you're able to practice at the top of your law license. And what I mean by that is that you're doing the creative work, the high-level work that lawyers can charge more money for. You don't want to be doing rote tasks as a lawyer. If you have staff, you want to be assigning those to your staff. But if you're going to feel comfortable about doing that, you need an effective way to follow up with those staff. And that is what a law practice management system will allow you to do. Delegate effectively, practice at the top of your law license, charge like you're practicing at the top of your law license, and feel comfortable that you can track things that you assign to other people in the office. The mobile access, as I said, is really important. Another thing you can do with calendars with respect to law practice management systems is that you can automate notifications. So that's an efficiency as well. That's a time saver. If you know that that you've added a task on the calendar, or you've added an event on the calendar and the client needs to know about it, or a colleague needs to know about it, or someone on the other side needs to know about it, in certain cases you can automate those notifications so they go out automatically. So all you have to do is put the information into your calendar, and the people you need to get that information to get it. So you don't have to take a second step. And the thing that's important with respect to managing a law firm is that you don't want to take a lot of second steps or third steps. The more efficient you can be, the more automated you can be, the better. Think of the example of using a second monitor in your practice. Consider how many times you open and close a window on any given day. If you could stop doing that 20 times a day, times a year, times 5 years, times 10 years, think of how much time you would save. Think about how much more billing you could do. Think about how much time you could spend with your family, how much more time. Using the right systems efficiently give you the opportunity to save time, to bill more, or to spend time the way you want to do it. So just to give you a heads up, so I don't do a ton of slides on my presentations. I talk a lot, or so my wife tells me. So I added a couple slides for you folks to take a look at, this is just what the calendar looks like in MyCase. So pretty intuitive, pretty easy to use. And you can see across the top tab, you've got home, calendar, tasks, contacts, cases, documents, billing, reporting, all that stuff I talked about. One database integrates all this information, pretty intuitive, easy to use. Let's do another poll. What do you say? I'm up for it. Let's talk about delegation. How do you assign work? Here are your choices. I don't. Things just kind of get done. I assign things, but I have no idea whether and how they are completed. I keep a running list of tasks on a paper calendar that my staff updates. We have a weekly meeting to discuss case status, sometimes on the weekends, parentheses, which I hate. All right, go ahead and respond.
Okay, great. If everyone can please select their response in the poll, and it should be a blue window, quick poll. It may have gotten hidden behind another window, but everyone should have a poll on your screen. If you can please go ahead and select your response. I will close the poll in just a few moments. And okay, looks like our majority of the audience has voted, so I'll close the poll and share our results. Okay, so how do you assign work? 24% said, I don't. Things kind of just get done. 20% said, I assign things, but I'm not sure if they're completed. 22% say, I keep tasks on a paper calendar that my staff updates. And 33%, so our majority by just a little bit, said we have a weekly meeting to discuss case status, maybe on Saturdays. Not too happy about that. So there's your response, Jared.
See that? Do I know what I'm talking about or what? That's like 4 questions and a completely even split almost.
Yeah.
This is how law firms work. You use a case management system, you don't have to work anymore. Things kind of get done, which is good, but also a little bit disconcerting because you're not sure that they're getting done. So delegate the work and oversee it using the case management system. You can assign things effectively and follow up. The paper calendar is problematic for a number of reasons, as I said. There's no real access control. It invites errors. It invites transposition errors, which are innocent but potentially problematic if a court date is written down wrong. And the weekly case status meeting, get rid of it. You don't need to do it anymore. All right, let's talk about workflow development. So what's a workflow? A workflow is an aggregation of tasks, essentially. Here are 5 things I need to get done on a particular case. And I know I need to do those 5 things every single time I open the divorce matter. So what do you do in a traditional environment? Well, you go in and you have one task that you put together and you save. And then you have another task that you put together and you save and you put on your calendar. And then you have another task that you save and put together and add to your calendar. See, I'm bored just talking about it already. What workflows will allow you to do, and MyCase offers workflow building functionality. You can set up matters so that the generic tasks, the rote tasks for that matter, are automatically added. You click a button, you've got your 7 tasks for your divorce case. You've got your 7 tasks for your immigration case. And then you're off and running. I talked a little bit before about efficiencies being a factor of saving small amounts of time over a longer period of time. Well, this is another example of that. The ability to create workflows in this fashion is going to save you a bunch of time. And it also goes back to delegating effectively. So workflows, pretty simple to understand what they are. They'll save you time. They'll reduce errors. And one thing I should mention here is I think a lot of people have read this book, but I'll just talk about it briefly. There's a book out there that was written probably like 20 years ago called the Checklist Manifesto. And essentially what it covers is the fact that even for professionals, simple checklists reduce potentially major errors. So think of a doctor, and this is, the surgeons are an example that are used in the book. Think of all the small things that a doctor needs to do in terms of a surgery to make it successful. It may be a simple thing, but what if a doctor forgets to take a sponge out of a patient? That could be a massive issue. But if you're using a checklist and item number 7 on the checklist is make sure to remove all sponges, you're far more likely to remember to do it. And that works in law practice as well. Write it down, add it to a workflow, and you will find that you reduce errors. And if you reduce errors, you reduce the chances of your committing malpractice. And we'll talk a little bit about malpractice before we're done here. But this is a tremendously effective way to save time, reduce errors, and also delegate effectively, as I talked about before. The other piece of this, too, is that it ends up creating some urgency and time sensitivity. Urgency addiction is an issue in our society. Everybody's addicted to their smartphone. I solved that by having a flip phone. Yes, I have a flip phone. My kids hate it, but I don't care. However, with respect to certain law firm tasks, they are sensitive. Your staff, your associates need to be aware of time-sensitive deadlines. So if you create effective workflows, they get a sense holistically of how the process of the case will work itself out. That's a learning experience. They'll also have time-sensitive tasks to do, milestones that they can reach out to. And if you're linking your case management calendar to your email calendar, what's going to happen is when those tasks are left undone, there's going to be a red flag. And when somebody sees a red flag, they're likely to do something about it. I don't know, it's just human nature. There are golden books written about it. So you want to make sure that you can create a little bit of urgency, a little bit of time sensitivity to encourage your folks, your staff, to stay on top of things. The other thing is that this builds processes. So one of the big issues with law firms is that they have a hell of a time onboarding staff and associate attorneys. You're plopped down at a desk. I shouldn't pick on law firms. This is germane to a lot of industries. You sit down at a desk. You are plopped in front of a computer and said, go ahead, get to work. There's no process. There's no understanding of how the process works. New attorneys have no clue how to manage a case. So if you can build workflows through your case management system, what you're essentially doing is building processes for your law firm. As I referenced before, that's going to help associates, that's going to help young attorneys, that's going to help staff to understand how these cases will flow. That is also going to help when you hire new people. One of the problems that law firms have traditionally had is that what happens in a lot of law firms is you get a secretary or a paralegal who's been there for 30 years, 30 some odd years, and then they retire. What happens? In a lot of cases, the whole firm falls apart. In a lot of cases, no one knows what the processes are anymore. And you're toast at that point. You're trying to bring somebody in and trying to recreate 30 years of institutional knowledge. And it's just not going to happen overnight, especially without processes in place. That's an extreme example, but if you set up processes, it's easier for new hires to step in, and there is less of an issue when you lose an important person in your law practice. In terms of MyCase, here's what a typical workflow can look like in MyCase. Pretty easy to set up. Calculate a due date, enter a task name, add a priority. There's your urgency, there's your process, all built into your single sign-on law practice management dashboard. Let's talk a little bit about financial management. There's my duck, Scrooge McDuck. Some of this stuff I've referenced before, but in terms of financial management and case management software, you now have a centralized place for time and billing. You're not using 3 different products that attach to a time and billing program. You've got it all in one place. What that means, in part, is that you can automate your invoice creation. So you've got your time and billing information there, so now it's a click of a button to create an invoice. Whereas if tracking back to earlier responses in this lecture, if you're using an Excel spreadsheet, well, how are you converting that information to an invoice? Spoiler alert, it's going to take you a long time, and you're going to hate doing it. And so what does that mean? Practically speaking, that means you're going to bill less often because you don't want to go through the process of billing. Let's extend that further. Oh, you're going to get paid less. You're going to enjoy fewer things. You're going to have less money. See how this is going? Downward spiral. So if you can have a place where you're able to do time and billing, automate invoices within one system, not only is it efficiency, but you're going to be able to get more invoices out, so you're going to be able to bill for more of the work that you do, and you're also going to be more likely to collect for more of that work that you've been doing. One of the other useful features of case management systems is that they have reporting functionality. So almost any law firm report that you could think of in terms of finance would be available on a case management system. And in particular, the easiest example I'll go with now is, you could run reports for accounts receivable. You could run reports for aged account receivables at different intervals. You could run reports for work in progress, again, at the touch of a button, oftentimes with graphical interfaces, which is helpful visually to see how this stuff looks. Because a lot of lawyers have a problem with math. I don't think I have to tell you. It's like that old Gerald Ford skit on Saturday Night Live. I was told there would be no math. That's why I went to law school. So you've got your reporting functionality. And one of the things that's useful is most case management systems have reporting functionality in terms of trust accounting. And you've got to run those IOLTA reconciliations as a law firm. And a lot of that can be automated now. As I said before, there's integrations as well. So you're talking about producing time and billing, producing invoices, and then syncing that or attaching that or pushing that to your accounting software. That's valuable as well. Now, Stephanie talked a little bit about payment processing before. So one of the advantages of case management software is most of these products are now integrating online payment options. So either they're using another software that's linked or they have a payment processing system built into them like MyCase does. If you look at some of the studies, and there have been studies out there recently, lawyers tend to get paid far more quickly if they charge via the web, online, if they allow people to pay by credit or debit cards, and by a factor of like a month. So if you want to get paid 31 days quicker, use payment processing online. Also, if you want to take retainers, one of the issues that attorneys have, that clients have with retainers, frankly, is lawyer is saying, hey, give me a boatload of money by X date and I need it in a cashier's check. Well, guess what? Not a lot of people have a ton of money in their bank accounts anymore. So why don't you let your clients set up their own payment plans by paying with their credit card? You can do that when you have payment processing systems that you use. Far easier to take retainers via credit card. The client's going to be able to pay it off over time. You get the money up front. This is like a really good deal, by the way. So you can set up these payment processing fees, and when you ask for retainers, you're going to be more likely to get those too. So you want to make more money in 2017 as an attorney? Give your clients meaningful payment options. The final thing I want to say in this section is that because there are integrations with accounting software, what you're going to see is that there is also an ease of access for accounting professionals. So if you're using accountants and they love QuickBooks, well, they can access QuickBooks, and all the information is going to be dumped in for them. And they will potentially also be able to access your case management system if you want them to. And if you're using a cloud-based software and you're using QuickBooks Cloud or whatever accounting software you're using, cloud version, all that stuff's available online. So guess what? Your accountant doesn't have to come to your office anymore. Here are just some of the reports available within MyCase. And as I said, most case management softwares will have multitudinous numbers of reports. But here are just some basic reports you can take a look at. What are my time and expenses today, this week, this month? How is my firm performing in terms of times and expenses? Here's a summary, and here's detailed reports. Click of a button, all that information is arrayed. And the reason that can happen is, again, this is a relationship database where literally everything is tied together. Let's do another poll. This is the last one, and frankly, I'm a little sad, but I'll try to get over it. We're talking about client communication this time. How often do you contact your clients? Here are your options. When there is a case event to report, when they owe me money, every 6 weeks, like clockwork, I wait for them to contact me.
Great. Thank you, Jared. So if everyone can please go ahead and vote in your last poll, and we get to share quick results. So, oh wow, everyone voted very quickly. I'm going to close the poll. Here goes. And results are in. How often do you contact your clients? 85% said when there is a case event to report, 3% when they owe me money, 10% every 6 weeks like clockwork, and 2% wait for them to contact them. So definitely have a vast majority there, 85% when there's a case event to report, which isn't too surprising. Is that, Jared?
No, that's what I expected. I'm an evil genius, actually. This is standard fare for law firms. And a lot of it is because law firms are reactive. I think and by the way, I think the right answer is C, every 6 weeks, like clockwork. You're thinking in terms of a couple items here when you're talking about client communication. The first is you want to get paid, right? So how do you encourage people to pay you? Well, they like you, which is why they're working with you, but they will pay you if they feel like you're putting the effort into their case. How do they feel like you're putting the effort into their case? Well, is it when you report a case event, potentially every 9 months? No. But what if you call your clients every 6 weeks and you say, hey, how is Matilda's softball team doing these days? Is James's science camp this summer? Clients like it when you talk to them about items that are not related to their case, because it makes them feel like you care about them. And by extension, it makes them feel like you care about their cases. And that's what you need to convey to your client if they're going to pay you. Because never in the history of client payments has a client said, oh, Merle, we have the lawyer's bill. It's for $8,000. Quick, get my credit card. It doesn't work that way. You have to continually convince your clients to pay you money. And one of the ways to do that is to stay on top of their cases, or to appear that you're staying on top of their cases by contacting them regularly. The other consideration here is that this is malpractice avoidance at its finest. The way clients get in trouble with boards of bar overseers, with licensing agencies, is because their clients are pissed off at them and they call and drop a dime. Rarely is it other lawyers dropping a dime. There's not a lot of cannibalism out there as far as that's concerned, or less than you might think. So the way you keep clients happy is you stay in touch with them. And on the malpractice side of things, if you're looking at your client's file and you say, yeah, I'm going to call my client today, there's really nothing to report. Well, you're an anal retentive lawyer, so what are you going to do? You're going to look at all that information you have on MyCase about your client's case, and you're less likely to miss something that might be a surprise if not only are you going in to call your clients every 6 weeks, but you're also checking in on case status every 6 weeks. Not only is this great from a marketing perspective, but it's better from a malpractice avoidance checklist. So you're avoiding those weekly meetings, but you're doing an every 6 weeks check-in. So let's talk a little bit about malpractice avoidance. And this will be the last piece before we take some questions. I think we're trying to give you like 15 minutes for Q&A. So malpractice avoidance. The first thing is client notifications. And there's several ways to achieve that, two of which I've talked about already. One is scheduling a standing conversation with your clients. Pick up the phone and call your clients every 6 weeks. You'll check in on the case. You're less likely to commit malpractice or make an error, especially simple errors that can get you in trouble. You can automate client notifications within a case management system. So that's great. Clients are getting information pushed out to them on a regular basis. And if some of those are automated, you're less likely to forget to send a reminder. The calendar management is super important in terms of malpractice avoidance. So as part of, I used to work for the state Supreme Court in Massachusetts doing consulting, and invariably the attorneys I worked with who had been disciplined by the bar agencies either in process or in the past, it was a calendaring error. They didn't schedule calls with clients, so they didn't call them. They didn't put deadlines on paper. They didn't delegate effectively. They mismanaged their calendar, and that opened up a gigantic ethics investigation, which now leads, by the way, to a review of your trust account reconciliation practices, which is bad news for about 85% of the lawyers out there. So calendar management and being able to use a one calendar system and sync it everywhere you need to be is tremendously helpful in terms of malpractice avoidance. And that is truly helpful with respect to, and that sort of functionality is built into a case management system. So this is like your holistic solution again. So as I alluded to, there are several paths to getting in trouble from an ethics standpoint. The first is your client hates you and is angry with you and calls your licensing agency. The second is you screw up a calendar issue. You're not calling your clients, you're not submitting a motion on time, you're not going to court when you're supposed to. The third is once that can of worms is opened, or if you get a bounce check or something, your trust accounting practices are potentially up for review. Some states will do these reviews on a regular basis. Some will only review when there is a potential issue or there's another ethics issue that they want to investigate. So on the trust account side, as I said before, with a lot of these case management systems, the majority of them, and MyCase does this, of course, is you can report on trust account reconciliations. So if you're investigated at some point and your bar authority says, hey, can we take a look at your reconciliations? Have you done those effectively? Are they balanced? Have you done them in the time frame that we've asked you to do them? Well, you generate those reports and you save them. Easy peasy. Data security is another issue that's coming up on a more regular basis, both in terms of malpractice and state laws. I think every state in the United States now has a data protection law of some kind. So you've got to be more careful about securing your client data. And one of the ways to do that is to use a case management system where your data is all in one place, so single access, single sign-on, and your data is encrypted. And you can also share encrypted data. So client portals are available where you can share information with clients without having to email that information or without having to mail it. You can tie down your data security using a case management system. And you can vet it for security prior to that as well. If you're going to buy a case management system like MyCase, ask about data security. It's something you should know. You see this less in malpractice and ethics than you do with respect to firms that have breaches of data. The problem is, even if your state does not have a law where they're going to prosecute you for data security issues. And if you don't have cyber insurance, it may be something you want to look into as far as this is concerned. But the issue is, if there is a data breach, regardless of whether you're prosecuted, regardless of whether you're fined, that is a public relations nightmare for your law firm that you don't want to deal with. And again, one of the advantages of case management software is that you've got access control, you've got some level of sign-in control, you've got data secured and encrypted, and the ability to share it effectively. You've got convenience, you've got security. Staff management is also important. Lawyers have tried, generals have tried, but as it stands, if you screw something up or your law firm screws something up, you, the lawyer, the managing partner, the overseeing attorney, are the one who is on the hook. It's your license. It's your job to manage your staff effectively. So how does a law practice management software help you with respect to that? Well, as I said before, you can delegate effectively. You can monitor more effectively. You can get pinged when somebody hasn't performed a task when they were supposed to and get on them to do it. You can monitor holistically all the milestones in a particular case and figure out whether or not your firm is staying on top of things. You can parachute in to look at certain cases if you're a managing partner. You could look at the cases you're assigned to if you're an associate, stay on top of your staff, stay on top of your paralegals. Everybody's sharing the same information. Tasks are delegated, tasks are assigned, tasks are completed. If tasks are not completed, they're followed up on. All of this can be automated through a law practice management system. And again, as the attorney, you're doing less rote work and more management work and more high-level work that you're going to get paid more money for. And one of the best things, I think, in terms of case management software, and I'm a big believer in transparency in law firms. I think law firms should be sharing information with employees and staff and should make it easy for clients to access their case information. So in terms of internal staffing issues, all of the data is in one place. Everybody can access at their appropriate level of access. On the client side, clients have portals to access their information. They're getting automated notifications. A case management system, properly used, can be a notification engine that will save you a bunch of time, that will increase your transparency, which is good for employee morale, and which is also good, by the way, in terms of marketing with respect to what your clients can expect. The easier you make it for your clients to access their data, the easier you make it for your clients to manage their data, the easier you make it for your clients to change their data and to work and collaborate with you, the better that relationship is going to be. They're less likely to hate you. They're less likely to call the bar and report you. So we have about 12 minutes left. That's all I got. There's me. Last name is Korea, like the country. There's how you contact me. I'm open to questions, folks.
Yeah, we did actually have a lot of questions just come in. They always pour in the last second.
Always wait. I finish.
They always wait till the end. But for those of you who have to leave us now, please take note of 3 things. When you close your webinar, a quick 5-question survey will pop up. All it takes is 30 seconds to answer those questions, and you're entered to win the Apple gift card. Also, if you are a Florida Bar member, note your CLE course number, which is 2515R. I also put that out in the chat pane. You'll have to self-report your CLE. We don't provide certificates for that. And you will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the MyCase blog where you will find these slides, the webinar recording, and the Apple gift card winner. So now I will get into some of these questions. And we had kind of a theme at the beginning here, Jared, with some similar questions and asking about this working for an overseas practice. And I'm going to actually read the next question as well, because they're kind of, I think you'll relate the two. Does the software work interchangeably with Mac and Microsoft-based computers? So I think it brings up the whole web-based question.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I'll also say, in addition, Stephanie, as I said before, if folks don't get their question answered, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Jared Korea. And that's a public forum, so other folks will be able to see it. Yeah, so the cloud-based case management systems, the beauty of those products is that they are device agnostic. And sometimes they are program agnostic. So it doesn't matter if you have a Mac. It doesn't matter if you have a PC. All that matters is that you have a secure internet connection, and all your information, or the majority of your information, is going to be available via this system, this one case management system. It will depend on how you sync those products to the case management system, but that's relatively easy to do. Whether you're using Gmail or MacMail or Outlook, you can link those email systems, you can link those calendar systems to the case management system, and it's relatively the same process for everything. So really the only issue is how you're going to connect the software you use that you want to continue to use that's not eliminated by a case management system to the case management system. But the product itself is available in the cloud and accessible via an internet connection. So really you need your internet connection that's secure, and you need a browser to access the software, and you can get to everything you need.
Excellent. And our next question is a good one. If I am a solo with no staff, is it beneficial to have a practice management system? I have a practice management system, but I rarely use it. I really want to use it, though.
Good. Kudos to you, sir or madam. I think that it's a good idea for solos to have a case management system as well. If for no other reason, then you're whittling down to one software product from like 6, and it's just easier to manage. These systems also have like really nice features. They're very intuitive to use, so you could create workflows for yourself just as easily as you could for someone that you're working with. You're likely to gain all those benefits from malpractice avoidance and not having to do too much rote work, and that's regardless of whether or not you have a staff. So I routinely recommend that solo attorneys use systems like this. The other thing is that it's so much more intuitive and easy to use. If you think of how law firms traditionally manage their practice without a case management system, they're either using like a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, which it takes work to update. And you're also maybe using an email system. So you're creating subfolders, you're saving stuff to subfolders. Just dump it all into one place. It's so much easier to use. Solos, small firms, large firms, it works for everybody. Dogs, it probably works for dogs. I don't know.
Okay, a few questions about security of law practice management system, if you could. I know that's not really a brief answer, but if you could respond to that, if there are security concerns.
So a lot of attorneys are still concerned about security on the cloud. And prior to this, I just gave a discussion on that very topic. One thing to realize is that there is no 100% guaranteed secured system out there. Like, the point is to reasonably prevent breach or reasonably take steps to prevent breach, not to guarantee that breach is prevented. You can't guarantee it. So I am of the personal opinion that a cloud-based software that's run by a reputable vendor that has encryption at a high level, that has user access controls, that has sign-in authentications, is far safer than the alternative, which is either a law firm operating in a paper-based practice where literally anybody could walk in and pull a piece of paper off your desk, or a piece of paper could blow off your desk and somebody could pick it up, or operating via a Word document or Excel spreadsheet, maybe on a laptop that doesn't even have a password on it. And if we're talking about where the data resides, you've got case management companies that have system redundancies. So you got a big server farm on the East Coast, big server farm on the West Coast, under armed guard. You're a law firm, you leave the door open on a Friday morning, somebody walks in, paper falls off your desk, and that's a malpractice claim. So I think in terms of security and malpractice avoidance, cloud-based software is definitely the way to go. I may still be in the minority when it comes to that, but I think that's changing rapidly. You just have to understand the security, both the features that exist within the system and things you could do on your own to better secure the software.
Okay, great. A lot of the questions that are coming in are very MyCase specific, so I'm going to refer those to our support team and reach out to those people after the webinar, so I don't throw those on you, Jared. But A couple of people are asking, if there's premise-based and then web-based, and do some practice management softwares do both, or do only one or the other?
It'll depend on the provider, obviously, but I know case management providers that will do solely cloud-based. There are still practice management companies out there who are premise-based, and there are some that will offer you both subscription options. It just depends on your provider.
Okay, great. And I immediately got the question, what does premise-based mean?
So premise-based is sort of the traditional way that software was managed. So a premise-based software would reside on your computer. So the program is on your device, and you access it via your device. You don't need to have an internet connection to get into the database, if it's a database we're talking about. The difference with cloud-based software is that it exists somewhere physically. That's the thing I think people misinterpret. Like, the cloud is not some ephemeral concept. The way the cloud works is it's not your server that's maintaining the product. It's someone else's server that you're renting space on, be it Amazon's or Google's or whoever's. And so the main difference is that instead of having that software reside on your computer or your specific device, it's residing somewhere else on someone else's server, and it's accessible via the internet. So that gives you a lot of options in terms of mobility and flexibility. That software is updated automatically. And one of the reasons people have moved from premise-based software to cloud-based software is because, generally speaking, the premise-based software is more expensive because you pay for it up front. With cloud-based software, you're paying a monthly fee. So not only is there this issue of how the information is accessed, there's this issue of how it is priced out, subscription basis versus an upfront payment. It's more complex probably than I make it sound. And again, I can flesh that out for people who have questions, but that's basically what you're looking at.
Okay, great. Now we had a funny question come in. Why did you name your goat William instead of Bob?
I named my goat William because Billy is short for William, so Billy Goat. I was not a very creative child, I have to say.
Okay, perfect.
Good question. Best question of the day.
Right? That was a good one. Okay. Perfect. I'm just scanning through these questions here. Who was the first law practice management software? I don't know the answer.
That's a good question. I don't even know if I know the answer to that. There's probably some out there that I have not heard of that was first. I mean, I know a lot of law firms still use like Time Matters and PC Law, and those were traditional product offerings in this space, but I don't know the answer to that. And if someone can find the answer, I would be very interested to know.
Okay, great. And me too, Jared. I just have time for one last question. Is law practice management specific to certain fields of practice? For example, claimants or workers' compensation, could they use it?
Oh, that's a good question. So there are two species of products out there. Some are built for specific practice areas. Some are built for law firms generally. So my opinion on this is you could use either. A general case management software can be set up to work in any practice area. And so there's this idea of just buying software out of the box or creating what's called a sandbox version of your software. So if you buy software like MyCase, there are certain default settings that exist, but you can tweak those default settings so that they work for your specific practice area.
Okay, great.
So I don't think it matters, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's all we have time for today. We do have, as I mentioned before, a lot of questions about MyCase specifically, which we'll hold for after the webinar. We will have our support team or software specialist team reach out to all of these people. I'll make sure that all of those questions are answered. And Jared is available on Twitter, as he mentioned. And a reminder, I will be sending an email tomorrow so you can have this recap of the presentation with the slides and video recording. So thank you to everyone who attended today, and big thank you to you, Jared.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate all you put into this, Stephanie. You worked very hard to corral me.
Thanks, Jared. And we'll see you all next month. Thanks again. Have a good rest of your day.